0.08 miles per hour. That's it. That's the margin. That's what cost Bubba Wallace a shot at an even better finish at Phoenix. Not a crash, not a mechanical failure. 0.08. And that's just story number one. Story number two, the same driver might miss a Cup Series race entirely this month, and it has nothing to do with racing. At Pit Lane Insiders, this is exactly the kind of NASCAR nobody else is talking about. Let's get into it. Set the stage. Being a NASCAR fan sometimes feels like riding the most unpredictable roller coaster in sports. One minute, you're celebrating a brilliant run on track. The next minute, something so incredibly small completely flips the story of an entire race. This week, we have two stories that perfectly show why NASCAR never, not for one single moment, gets boring. The first is about a moment decided by a margin so small that fans are still shaking their heads. The second could lead to a major driver missing a Cup Series race this month, and the team already has multiple backup plans on standby. Both stories involve big names, both have big consequences, and together they tell you everything about how unpredictable this NASCAR season is becoming. Before we get into it, hit that like button and subscribe to Pit Lane Insiders. We're a brand new channel working toward 1,000 subscribers. Real NASCAR fans, honest conversations, zero fluff. Let's go. Story 1. 0.08 miles per hour. Let's start with the moment that had NASCAR fans doing a double take. Bubba Wallace and the number 23 Toyota were having a genuinely strong race at Phoenix Raceway. Solid pace, good strategy. He ultimately crossed the line in 6th place, which is still an excellent result in a field this competitive. But here's the thing. That result could have been even better. Bubba Wallace was penalized for speeding on pit road. Now, pit road penalties happen in almost every race. Drivers are always pushing the limit because every fraction of a second matters when you're fighting for track position. But the margin here? That's what makes this story. Wallace was clocked at just 0.08 miles per hour over the speed limit. 0.08. That's basically nothing. That's a margin so small, most people wouldn't even notice it in everyday driving. But NASCAR's rules are crystal clear. If you're over the limit, you're over the limit. No exceptions, no gray area. Because of that penalty, Wallace was sent to the tail end of the field. That single call hurt his track position and ultimately cost him a shot at an even stronger finish. If you're Bubba Wallace in that moment, it has to feel absolutely brutal. He wasn't alone. And here's the thing. Wallace wasn't the only driver caught on pit road that day. Two-time Cup Series champion Kyle Busch was penalized for pit road speeding at Phoenix. Kyle Larson also penalized. That tells you everything about how difficult pit road speed control was during that race. But the wildest pit road moment of the entire day? That belonged to Dillon. Dillon received a penalty listed as removing equipment from the assigned pit area. Simple enough on paper. But what actually happened was something fans watching at home are not going to forget quickly. The number 10 car left pit road with the fuel can still attached to the car. Dillon drove an entire lap around the 1-mile Phoenix Oval with that fuel can hanging off the side of the car. It looked absolutely wild on television. And honestly, the biggest relief is that nothing dangerous came from it. Because a situation like that could have turned serious very fast. In the end, Blaney navigated through all the chaos and brought the victory home for Team Penske, a deserved win in a messy race. But when fans look back at Phoenix, one of the biggest talking points will be that tiny, brutal margin that cost Bubba Wallace a chance at something even better. 0.08 miles per hour. That's NASCAR precision in its purest, most unforgiving form. Story 2. Bubba Wallace might miss Darlington. Now let's move to the second story, and this one could have a much bigger impact on what happens over the next few weeks. Bubba Wallace might miss a NASCAR Cup Series race this month, and it has nothing to do with penalties, performance, or anything that happens on a racetrack. Wallace and his wife Amanda are expecting their second child, and the due date lands right around the time of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Darlington Raceway on March 22nd. Earlier this season, Bubba made something very clear publicly. When their first son, Bex, was born, he wasn't there. Racing commitments kept him away, and he said directly, he does not want to miss the birth again. That's something every fan can understand. Family comes first, full stop. But from a racing standpoint, this creates a genuinely complicated situation for 23XI Racing. Because pregnancies don't follow a schedule. The baby could arrive at any moment, and the team needs to be ready for every possible scenario. The 3 backup plans. Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, addressed this situation on the Door Bumper Clear podcast, and what he revealed shows just how much preparation goes into something like this. The team has 3 separate backup plans ready. Plan A, Corey Heim. If the team knows in advance that Wallace will miss the race, Corey Heim is likely the driver who steps in. However, there's a complication. Heim and Wallace don't fit the same way in the car, which means the team would need at least a full day of preparation to adjust the setup for Heim to drive the number 23 Toyota comfortably. Plan B, emergency substitute. If Amanda goes into labor just hours before the race and there's no time for major car adjustments, the team would turn to another driver who could jump in without needing significant changes. Speed over preparation. Plan C, still in the background if neither of those options works cleanly. The timing makes everything even more intense. Darlington is the race everyone is watching, and with the due date right in that window, every day between now and March 22nd matters. What happens to the championship? The question NASCAR fans immediately start asking is obvious. What does this mean for Wallace's championship eligibility? Under Cup Series rules, drivers normally need to compete in every race to remain eligible for the playoffs and the championship. But NASCAR does allow waivers, and the birth of a child is exactly the kind of circumstance where a waiver is likely to be granted. We saw this play out recently when Denny Hamlin missed the Cup Series race in Mexico City in 2025. NASCAR granted him a waiver and he remained fully eligible for the championship. That precedent matters. And given what we know about how NASCAR has handled these situations, it's very likely Bubba Wallace would receive the same consideration if he misses Darlington for the birth of his child. And honestly, that feels like exactly the right call. The bottom line. When you step back and look at both of these stories together, it perfectly captures what makes NASCAR unlike any other sport. One moment, a driver loses meaningful track position because of 0.08 miles per hour on pit road. The next moment, that same driver might step out of the car entirely because he's about to become a father for the second time. Tiny margins, huge moments, real life happening right in the middle of it all. That's NASCAR in 2026. And at Pit Lane Insiders, this is exactly why we cover this sport the way we do. Because the stories that matter aren't always the ones that make the front page. Sometimes the biggest story is 0.08 miles per hour. Sometimes it's a fuel can attached to a car going 150 miles an hour around Phoenix. And sometimes it's a driver choosing family over everything else. All of it matters. All of it is NASCAR. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the penalty on Bubba Wallace at Phoenix was too harsh? Or are rules when it comes to pit road speed? And if Wallace does miss Darlington, is Corey Heim the right driver to step into the number 23 car? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. If this breakdown was worth your time, smash that like button. And subscribe to Pit Lane Insiders for honest NASCAR coverage every single week. No fluff, no filter, just the real stories behind the sport we love. That's Pit Lane Insiders. See you in the next one.